The moment he stepped off the shuttle, he could already tell something was wrong. Not dangerous wrong, just the sort of bureaucratic, cosmic-level confusion wrong that ruins a man's whole week. He had come here for what he believed was a cushy maintenance job, something involving pressing buttons, checking cooling vents, maybe yelling at a stubborn vending machine. Instead, a tall, lavender-skinned alien with way too many clipboards rushed up to him, slapped a badge on his chest, and declared with deadly seriousness that the station had been waiting for the new species health inspector. He barely had time to ask what that meant before they escorted him down gleaming metallic corridors that smelled like disinfectant and fruit candy. He kept trying to explain they had the wrong human, but every alien who passed nodded respectfully, whispering as if he were some legendary hero of sanitation. A few alien girls peeked over their shoulders at him with a mix of curiosity and, was that anticipation? He'd never been ogled during a workplace orientation before. It felt like they were collectively evaluating him for reasons no HR department would approve of. They guided him into a massive medical bay filled with devices that hummed like broken microwaves. A nurse with blue freckles motioned for him to step onto a platform. "Routine bioscan," she chirped. "Totally painless." "Probably." The machine flashed a cheerful green, then suddenly began shrieking with the intensity of a panicking smoke alarm. "Warning! Unknown mass detected! Size out of safe range!" The nurse gasped. Another alien girl leaned in with wide glowing eyes, staring at the holographic readout in disbelief. "Is that part of him? That can't be part of him. It's too substantial." The system kept escalating. "Biological object potentially volatile. Initiating containment protocol." What containment protocol? Why did that sound like something designed for exploding creatures? He held up his hands. "It's fine. I'm fine. That's completely normal for humans." But the aliens only exchanged looks that said absolutely nothing about this situation is normal. One fainted. One covered her mouth like she was witnessing a forbidden ritual. Another whispered, "Is he enhanced? Has Earth developed biological weaponry shaped like, well, like that?" He felt like he'd wandered into a cosmic misunderstanding powered entirely by wild imagination and zero biological education. "It's not a weapon," he repeated, very aware that repeating those words only made the scene more suspicious. Within minutes, the station's security team arrived, not armed, but holding padded gloves as if handling an unstable creature. They escorted him down another corridor, flanked by 3 alien girls who couldn't stop glancing at the lower region of his silhouette like it might spontaneously sprout fangs. He tried to explain his resume mix-up, insisting he was supposed to fix air filters, not be analyzed like radioactive fruit. But the aliens nodded sympathetically while clearly not understanding a thing. "Don't worry," one said soothingly. "Your impressive biological extension is classified. No unauthorized personnel will be allowed to touch it." Then she added under her breath, "Unless authorized later." Rumors spread fast. He could feel it. Every time a door opened, another alien girl peeked out, eyes widening before ducking back inside with a gasp, whispering to a friend. By the time they took him to a temporary observation chamber, the entire station seemed convinced he was some new human supersoldier with a concealed mega-organ capable of causing mass panic, or mass pleasure, depending on who you asked. He sat on the sterile cot, buried his face in his hands, and muttered, "All this over a routine physical? This is why I hate job onboarding." Outside the glass, an alien nurse scribbled notes, while glancing down at the scanner data again and again. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Either humans have evolved far beyond expectations, or this one is dangerously exceptional." He groaned. Not exceptional. Just unlucky. And deeply, deeply misunderstood. The moment they released him from the observation chamber, he realized the rumor fire had spread faster than a gas leak near an open flame. Everywhere he walked, alien girls pretended not to stare, badly. Their eyes weren't subtle, their whispers weren't quiet, and their footsteps weren't discreet as they followed him down the corridor like curious, overly hormonal ducklings. He tried to ignore it, but it was hard to ignore when one of them tripped because she wasn't watching where she was going, just watching him. The station administration rushed him into a conference room that looked like a cross between a lecture hall and a catastrophe response center. Dozens of alien women sat at long glass tables, datapads glowing, all staring at him like he was a rare specimen delivered straight to their doorstep. He stood awkwardly as the director. A tall woman with shimmering green hair cleared her throat. "Ladies, we must evaluate the human's biological anomaly. For safety reasons." Someone coughed loudly. Someone else deadpan whispered, "For safety?" "Sure. Definitely safety." They started asking questions that didn't sound very scientific. Is it detachable? Does it need feeding? Can it be used recreationally or only defensively? Is dual-wielding a thing for humans? All delivered with professional tones that fooled no one. He tried to answer with dignity, but dignity was impossible when one alien girl raised her hand and asked if the mega-organ required its own passport. He insisted it was completely normal by human standards. A chorus of disbelieving gasps filled the room, followed by several women scribbling in notebooks like they just discovered a new religion. After the disastrous meeting, they assigned him a personal handler, a flustered, peach-colored alien girl named Ryla who tried to act professional but kept turning pink every time she looked at him. She escorted him to the cafeteria, talking too fast, pretending to check her tablet even though it was upside down. "I'm supposed to monitor your condition. For research. Official research." He couldn't help teasing her. "You sure you're not just curious?" Her cheeks brightened. "Purely academic curiosity." "You said that like someone trying to convince themselves." She sputtered, nearly walking into a wall. As they ate, she ate, he poked at something that resembled glowing noodles. She finally relaxed enough to ask real questions. "Are all humans like you? Or are you special?" He shrugged. "Average. Maybe above average. But nothing crazy." She tapped a finger on her chin thoughtfully. "Your species must have very sturdy females." He nearly choked. Their conversation took a surprisingly sweet turn. She asked about Earth, about human relationships, about how humans show affection. He told her about hand-holding, hugging, joking around, simple things. She seemed fascinated, like the idea of intimacy that didn't involve scanning equipment was revolutionary. When she admitted she'd never been on a date because alien dating customs were too bureaucratic, he laughed. "Bureaucratic? How?" "Applicants fill out forms, undergo compatibility scans, present a genetic safety certificate." "That's not dating. That's applying for a mortgage." She giggled, covering her mouth in embarrassment. "Maybe humans are more fun." Before the moment could soften too much, chaos found him again. A trio of alien girls arrived, pretending they needed additional measurements. One carried a ruler. Another had calipers. The third had what looked suspiciously like a measuring tape with hearts printed on it. Ryla jumped in front of him. "He's on break. You can't just inspect him whenever you want." The girls protested. "We're conducting peer-reviewed research." "You're conducting fantasies," Ryla shot back. For a moment, he thought they might actually fight. It was both flattering and terrifying. The rest of the day spiraled into similar nonsense, aliens offering to check his vital signs, aliens asking to interview him privately, aliens claiming they needed to assess human flexibility for interspecies health reports. Every excuse was flimsier than the last. By the time evening came, he was exhausted, over-inspected, over-questioned, and barely convinced he wouldn't wake up tomorrow strapped to a diagnostic table. Ryla walked him back to his quarters, trying to apologize for everyone else. "They're not used to humans," she said softly. "Or humans like you." He sighed. "Trust me, either am I." But as she lingered awkwardly at the door, cheeks still glowing pink, he realized not all the attention was bad. Some of it, even the flustered, overcurious kind, was strangely nice. And if he wasn't careful, he just might start enjoying this insane job he never applied for. The next morning began with chaos, and not the gentle, amusing kind he was starting to get used to. This was the full-scale, rumor-fed, emotionally charged alien girl hysteria variety. He opened his door and nearly tripped over a crowd waiting outside. A dozen alien girls immediately pretended they weren't there, suddenly fascinated by the ceiling, the wall, or their own elbows. One held a clipboard upside down. Another clutched a bouquet of glowing flowers she tried to hide behind her back. Someone whispered, "Act natural," which only made everyone freeze like malfunctioning mannequins. He pushed through them, trying to maintain what little dignity he had left, but whispers spread behind him like a gossip wildfire. "I heard it can stun a Threxian bull." "No, my cousin said it emits pheromones that can hypnotize." "Someone told me it points north when danger is near." He prayed none of them ever visited Earth. The disappointment would ruin an entire galaxy's mythos. When he reached the central hub, the madness escalated. The station had formed actual factions. The first group, wearing pink badges, called themselves Team Romance. They argued that he should be protected, pampered, and emotionally bonded with, for interspecies cultural study. The second group, wearing blue goggles, was Team Science, whose members carried way too many tools for anyone's comfort. They insisted on performing rigorous, long-term field examinations. And then there was Team Security, for stern women wearing armored vests who kept telling everyone the human needed to be neutralized or regulated like a dangerous animal. He stood there, speechless, while the three factions yelled over one another. One shouted that he should be given a private suite filled with soft blankets and fruit snacks. Another demanded he be isolated in a lab for conductivity tests. Security wanted him wrapped in hazard tape until further notice. A tall alien girl from Team Science pointed her scanner at him. "Hold still. I need to check the energy output of your lower." He raised both hands. "No more scans." A few girls giggled. Someone muttered, "He's so assertive," which caused several others to blush at once. Ryla pushed through the crowd like a frustrated babysitter in charge of 50 overexcited toddlers. "Back up! All of you!" she snapped, surprisingly fierce for someone who blushed at compliments. She grabbed his arm, not softly, and dragged him toward the maintenance corridor, muttering, "I swear, if I hear one more myth about your equipment starting earthquakes, I'm filing complaints." Once alone, she exhaled dramatically. "This is getting out of hand." "It got out of hand yesterday," he said. "Today it's out of the entire solar system." She tried to keep a professional tone, but even she couldn't hide the flicker of curiosity behind her eyes. "For the record, I don't believe you're a weapon. I just think you're uniquely structured." "That's not better." She laughed nervously. "I'm trying, okay?" As they walked, their conversation softened into something unexpectedly comfortable. She admitted she'd been thinking about him last night, strictly in a scientific context, she insisted, which only made her sound less convincing. He teased her gently, and she almost walked into a wall again. But peace didn't last long. They entered the med lab to report his vitals, only to find both Team Science and Team Romance already arguing inside. Team Science claimed access rights. Team Romance claimed emotional rights. Security arrived moments later, announcing they would conduct a compulsory, grand inspection, approved by the station director. He nearly choked. "What does a grand inspection involve?" One scientist answered too cheerfully. "Full biological mapping," a Romance girl corrected her. "Full bonding compatibility assessment," Security added. "Complete hazard risk testing." He stared at them. "In simpler words?" Three voices answered at once, all inappropriate in different ways. He took one step back. They took 3 steps forward. Ryla threw herself between him and the mob. "You can't force him into that procedure." A scientist crossed her arms. "It's regulation." Ryla glared. "It's fantasy disguised as regulation." The room exploded into arguments, accusations, and wildly unprofessional proposals. One girl shouted, "I scheduled time 3 days in advance." Another yelled, You can't reserve living beings like conference rooms. Then, to his horror, someone pulled out a scheduling chart, color-coded, laminated, detailed. He made a break for it. The alien shrieked and chased him down the hallway. He dodged scanners, clipboards, measuring devices, glowing flowers, and one romance team girl who attempted a full-body tackle. He sprinted through the station shouting, "It's not a weapon! Stop trying to deactivate it!" Which unfortunately convinced half the listeners that it definitely was a weapon. Ryla finally caught up to him in a storage bay, breathless, hair frazzled, desperately trying not to laugh. "This is officially the worst health inspection program in the galaxy." He leaned against the wall, panting. "I didn't even sign up for this job." She touched his arm, gently this time. "Don't worry. I'm not letting them strap you to any tables. Scientific or romantic." Her soft, nervous smile almost made the insanity worth it. Almost. And somewhere outside the storage bay, someone whispered, "Schedule a new inspection slot." He escaped the last one. He groaned. Tomorrow was going to be worse. The next day began with an emergency announcement echoing through every corridor. "All personnel report to the central atrium for critical biological clarification." He groaned into his pillow. Another meeting. Another round of wild theories. Another opportunity for someone to wave a measuring device in his face. Ryla arrived at his door moments later, out of breath but determined. "They're holding a station-wide briefing to finally settle the issue," she said. "No factions. No forms. No calipers. Just truth." He wished he believed her, but he followed anyway. The atrium was packed, hundreds of alien girls, all pretending to be calm and professional while clearly vibrating with curiosity. The director stood at the front with a giant hologram behind her displaying the infamous scanner image, the one that had started the whole fiasco. As soon as he entered, whispers rippled across the crowd like wind through leaves. He'd never seen so many eyes zoom directly toward his waist. The director raised her hands. "After extensive debate, speculation, and inappropriate betting pools, we will now determine the true nature of the human male's questionable dimension." She gestured dramatically at him. "Please step forward." He considered running, but Ryla gave him a supportive nudge. "Just explain it simply," she whispered. "They don't understand Earth anatomy. Use small words." He cleared his throat. "Okay. Look. Humans aren't bioweapons. That part of me you keep scanning is completely normal. Standard equipment. No threat. No mystical energy. No explosion risk. It's just biology. Earth biology." The aliens murmured in disbelief. One raised her hand. "Then why is it so substantial?" He covered his face with both hands. "Genetics okay? It's not something humans consciously regulate." Another asked. "So it won't emit pheromone shockwaves?" "No." A third. "It does not hypnotize?" "No." A fourth leaned forward hopefully. "Can it at least detect earthquakes?" He threw up his hands. "It doesn't do any of that." The silence that followed was thick, awkward, and borderline mournful, as if he just crushed a collective fantasy. Then came the real turning point. One of the scientists pushed her glasses up her nose and said, "But if it is not a weapon, then why did it trigger the scanner alarms?" He pointed at the projector. "Because your scanner is designed for species with retractable limbs and detachable organs. Humans aren't built that way. So when the machine saw something, external but not removable, it panicked. Just like all of you." A hush fell. The director stared at the hologram again. "So it was a device error?" "Yes." "And not a rogue or a superweapon?" "No." "And you are 100% harmless?" He shrugged. "Well, emotionally I can cause some damage, but physically? I'm safe." Laughter erupted. Nervous at first, then genuine. A visible wave of relief spread across the entire atrium. One alien girl slumped into her seat whispering, "Oh, thank the moons, I was already planning evacuation drills." Another muttered, I told you it wasn't going to explode, probably. The director nodded firmly. Very well. We officially clear the human of all hazard classifications. A small drone zipped forward and slapped a new badge on his chest. Certified non-weaponized human male. The crowd applauded like it was a galactic achievement award. But the moment of peace didn't last long. An alien girl in the front row whispered much louder than she realized. If it's not a weapon, does that mean we can study it recreationally? Another chimed in. Is there a waiting list? Do we sign up somewhere? Someone else whispered. I heard Earth males enjoy bonding rituals. Maybe he can demonstrate. He squeezed his eyes shut. Great. Now a different kind of chaos. Ryla stepped beside him, arms crossed defensively as dozens of curious eyes shifted their focus. He's not a research toy, she announced louder than intended. She tugged him away from the crowd. Come on. Before someone creates another committee. When they finally reached an empty hallway, she let out a breath she'd been holding for hours. I'm sorry, she said softly. I know this whole thing has been insane. But I'm glad you're here. Even if you arrived by accident. He smiled at her sincerity. I'm glad you're here too. You're the only one who treated me like a person instead of a scientific miracle or a walking panic button. Her cheeks glowed softly. For what it's worth, I never thought you were dangerous. She paused, then added quietly. Interesting, yes, but not dangerous. He laughed, leaning lightly against her shoulder. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me on this station. They shared an easy, warm moment before the intercom blared a new announcement. Attention all staff. Please disregard any circulating sign-up sheets titled Inspection Waitlist 2.0. Those are not approved. He groaned. Ryla groaned. Then they both burst into laughter because of course the station would immediately try again. As they walked down the hall together, he muttered. I'm never getting a normal job, am I? Ryla shook her head, smiling. Probably not. But look on the bright side. At least you'll never be bored here. He sighed dramatically. Yeah. That's what I'm afraid of. Behind them, someone whispered excitedly. If he's not a weapon, what do humans use for weapons? Another replied. Who cares? I still want to see the not weapon again. He didn't even turn around. He just kept walking, resigned, amused, and already preparing for whatever disaster tomorrow would bring.